Good. So when we're doing rebounding force, some of the basic principles that we have to look at from the issuer's perspective and the feeder's perspective. The feeder needs to look at our partner standing on a set of bathroom scales, and we want to double the weight on that scale. So if I'm feeding, I can't drop down underneath and lift him off the bathroom scales. I've got to push him onto the bathroom scales. I'm going to double his weight. The measurement on his feet, the amount of pressure has to double. And then if you give me a bit of a stretch and I load and I press down, I'm pressing on an elastic stretch from the point of contact on his arm and the ground. He's got to regulate that through the joints, stretch it all open. So this stretch takes the load. From there, he relaxes and hangs the muscles and then expands his awareness out and past me. If he keeps his mind in and I feed, I'm only going to get my weight to give me a small hop. But if you extend your stretch through me and out, now I'm getting distance because he's aligning the springs in his body to send me away. Now, the basics is for him to tune those springs to the feeling of life force, for his mind to absorb that life force, which I'm stimulating through my mass, through his stretch, and then send it backwards. So the energy I give him, he transforms it through the stretch, through his trampoline, and bounces me. So this basic of feeding the Jin for rebounding force is essential. Now, let's say he wants to develop martial power instead of just a baseline of internal power. Now, the difference is, if he's developing base connection, he's spreading and sinking and letting everything expand mentally through his feeling and through his facial web to create more connections. This is good for healers, teachers, health. A whole range of benefits come from it, as well as martial arts. That's your foundation. But let's say he wants to develop striking power and a very, very short, sharp, shocking power on his fists. Then what he's going to do, I put the force in, he's going to thin the stretch out and squeeze his bones a little bit, open his joints, and then project the force more like an arrow than spreading like a trampoline. So if you tighten the stretch and then just shoot the arrow through me, I have to feed it at a faster speed so I get a faster recoil inside of his body. So if you stretch through me a bit more, set it up, and then I show in my body, here it comes, I can start increasing the speed until we reach the speed of a boxer's jab. That means when he puts his hand out and connects, he can connect with a lightning bolt through his body rather than a gentle spring and a float in the bounce. This changes the martial capacity of his body. Now, what it's going to do, it's going to make the body highly electric, which is highly alpha, highly competitive, highly macho, and he'll be the king of the gym. So it won't produce a healing vibration where someone walks into your acupuncture clinic and wants to be around you. When they walk around a person who's an alpha, they're going to unconsciously want that person to be their friend because he's much stronger than they are on an energetic level. They'll have a fear of that person. They'll have an admiration, wow, that person's amazing, and sort of like the alpha male in any gym. That will just generate the energy for this to happen. It's not a healing vibration, it's not a healing frequency. But unconsciously, every male wants that because they can attract better women, better experiences by being the alpha, better chance of survival, and so forth. So it's in the reptilian brain to be alpha. So if you're training martially, start with a wide spreading, soft opening and connection of the body, and then rhythmically move to squeezing the bones, opening the joints and running the fast jins if you're a martial artist. Now, when I touch his body and I put the energy into his base, I can go through his back more, I can go through the front more, I can go through the core more. I can navigate his body and pressurize his feet through many different pathways. So what I've got to do is, if I give you a medium level feed, I can go around the back, down the front, down the side hip, down the other side hip, and change what I'm building inside him. So I'm putting stresses through lines in his body. As I put that stress in, where I stress gets stronger and gets more connected if he's relaxing, stretching. If I'm building his back more and I don't do his front, he's going to have a weak front. So as a feeder, you're feeding the back, the front, the left, the right. Are you using rotational force to the foot? Are you using a dropping force through his body? Your personality of the feed is going to put stresses that are going to build unique things inside his body. So this is super, super important, that the feeder, the person who's giving him stress, is doing more work to build the person than the issuer. The issuer just has to relax, think, spread, or tighten and fire. But the line that happens is decided by the feeder. So you have to define the power lines of your system. An easy way to define the power lines: front, back, left, right. So you just split the sides and the front back and just slice the body into 4 quadrants, top to bottom off the central axis and through the leg. And then if you're doing spirals, you might be doing a spiral from inside to outside there in a rotational torquing force when you feed. And your partner's torquing as they issue. So you can define all these lines of power according to the technique that's being used. But every art will have different types of ideas about what the lines of power are. So refine the understanding, and then you can put it into your body through feeding. So feeding the jinn is a little bit of a science. When we go a little bit further, when you feed the jinn into your partner, you can attack weaknesses. So let's say he gives me a stretch, and we have the basic line, and it could be something around the side of his hip there. So I jolt the energy, give me more stretch, onto that hip point. And what happens, all the connections around that weak point start getting built up. And let's say I find something around the inside of the scapula in here. So I'll put that energy, give me more stretch, that's it. And I'll build up the inside of that scapula. So there's sort of like a hollow there that he's got strong, weak next to each other. So I want to touch in that weaker area. And to do that, notice I'm rotating a little bit and hitting the scapula and then hitting the hollow in there. So I hit that area and he stretches, opens his back a little bit more. There we go. And now that starts becoming active. So any parts of his body that are inactive, I have to find them and stimulate them in the way I spiral my mind and forces through his body to feed the jinn correctly. The feeder builds the training partner. Now, inside this we have non-intentional models and intentional models. So you create a preset in his body. So he vital breathes, he sets a basic frame, has a basic feeling of sung, hanging the muscles, opening the joints. And from there, he just expands and relaxes the awareness out as I feed and lets everything drop and spread. We're in more of an oval action going through me and out. And once he has the frame there, the baseline, then he releases intention and drops. Now, off this baseline of non-intention, we can build highly intentional issues while using non-intention, depending on what the baseline is. So if he gives me a dynamic stretch and he thins the muscles out, he stretches like an arrow through me for a high-speed feed, now when I put that feed in, I can just grip in, but from his baseline, he just releases through the pattern and fires the arrow and goes, releases out. But he does it with a very thin stream off his joints. And then I can rhythmically build that, and all he's doing is just releasing out and firing the arrow as a reflection of the force that's coming in. So you can create an artificial structure and release into non-intention and just let the energies go through the artificial structure. It looks intentional, but his mind is very, very empty, very, very soft, and just letting go through different patterns and different shapes. So we have a vibrational scale between pure baseline of non-intent and softening as you take the feed to create the rebound, to high levels of intention, and you just soften from that high level of intention into emptiness to shoot an arrow. And it has a type of non-intentional, unconscious programming that you can shoot these arrows with a very small amount of effort as you develop them. So the intentional model and non-intentional model, and intentional models have more control, like long energy. I pull him through me, I run the pattern, compress, decompress, and I send him a long distance on railway tracks. And no matter how his energy deviates, I take control and I produce long energy. So this is an intentional model. Most martial schools will have more intentional training than non-intentional training. And every intrinsic energy, whether it's a highly intentional intrinsic energy or not, you want to have a reasonable balance, always striving towards the non-intentional methods, so that the energy and the pattern of movement goes much deeper. It goes straight into your subconscious mind. It's a much deeper energy, and you get much deeper growth and faster development, because your unconscious habits are what are going to express themselves when you're doing all your martial drills. Any drill you're doing, what's deep is going to come out. So we want to get these energetic behaviors to go deep as quickly as possible so that they become martially viable. And you need random training rhythm drills where you have a certain amount of pattern that's fixed, and then a change where you put different techniques into the pattern so that it's predictable to start with, but there's unpredictable things coming all the time inside the pattern, and then you do the fudging out of those situations to make it a martial art. Otherwise, it'll never be a martial art if you're not receiving hundreds and hundreds of punches every day and developing timing. Timing is the essence of martial arts. So we start off with the science of feeding, then we start feeding individual techniques at various speeds, getting faster and faster. And then we look at how that technique is developing structure and power. Then we put it into a martial drill, into a push-hand set. And so we're putting all these together. But all these applications need to be instilled timing application first, and then build the frame, the grounding, the science application, everything, the power connection, the flow underneath that. So your unconscious mind, its birth of learning is timing. That's the first contact you make with any movement, is it has to be rooted in the correct timing. And then you can build the flow, the power, the connection, and the speed, and all these other things start coming into play. But timing first. So if you're running rebounding force exercises through a martial framework for a martial school, contextualize it in the aspect of timing and application of that particular movement, and how is it going to be used. So do those drills first before the rebounding. If you're running a Tai Chi school for health, then it doesn't matter. Timing's not important. You're not running a martial arts school. You're not going to be running the eyes of the hawk rule all the time. What is eyes of a hawk? Highly concentrated, reptilian brain, focused, hunting mind, which is martial arts. I've never seen a Tai Chi school do that before, not one. Who has the hunting reptilian brain running while they do the Tai Chi form? It's very rare. You're just not going to see it. I think you have to visit a lot of Tai Chi schools before you see someone with eyes of a hawk, and who's using the eyes of a hawk to permeate the energy and use it as a martial art. That's been lost. If you're in an environment where that is the case, then you need to balance the observing mind, the intending mind, and monitor the stillness between those two, get as much separation as you can, so that you don't become a hierarchical structure that naturally evolves out of alpha males and alpha females and the reptilian brain. So you can make it a spiritual development mindfulness practice. That will totally overlay on how you feed for rebounding force. It'll become a natural part of your feed. If you don't think out the whole picture and mind map, this is the whole martial art framework, this is where I'm going, these are the causation chains of exercises to get me to the destination I want, you're simply not going to get there. You have to have a basic intellectual understanding of the whole journey, the whole map to reach your destination. And it's a psychological framework of your mind, the feelings and the energy system and the body mechanics in every drill that goes from A to Z. And then you do the drill differently from A to Z if you understand what the next step is going to be. So understand the whole framework before you begin. And this requires a teacher who's very open and giving with that information to define the whole framework. This is the package. This is how we're going to train each aspect of your mind, each aspect of the chi, each aspect of the body to do that. The reason why people don't do that is the moment the person understands it, they can train on their own. They don't need a teacher anymore as much as you would think, because the intuition kicks in, you felt the basic energies, you know what to do, you can go and open your own Tai Chi school. Now, this type of control stops teachers, and especially very traditional teachers, from giving anything to people. You've been there a decade, they'll give you a few crumbs. So avoid anyone who has that type of psychology. If you walk into a Tai Chi school, look at the most senior student and see what his capability is, and ask him how long he's been there, and you'll know how long it'll take for you to get that capability, that skill set. And that's your measurement. Do you want to invest that amount of time to get to that student's level? Don't base it on the skill of the teacher, because if the students aren't getting there, you're not going to get there either. So you really got to look at the whole picture of how you train. Rebounding force is one of the fundamental key pillars in how to feed the Jinn, and your training partner has to think it out really well. You have to think it out really well, and be very clear what your goals are when you feed your partner. The way you become sensitive to your partner's structures, feeling strengths, weaknesses, you have to be very open to your partner and feed those weaknesses and build them up for them, and not to define those weaknesses in sort of like a hierarchical projection over someone, but say, oh, I feel this, I feel that. And when you say you feel something, it doesn't project over someone. It's just saying how you feel. So if you feel a weakness around a part of a person's spine, oh, I can feel a weakness there, I'm going to feed it. You're feeding it to make it stronger. And if you say that to the person, they put their mind there and go, oh yeah, there's a hole or a gap in that part of their back. You can build it up. And it's surprising how quickly you can build a weak point and make it strong. It doesn't take long, because it's just a matter of waking up the fascia and the muscles and the blood flow around that area and use it. And the feeder's job is to do exactly that. So as a feeder, pay a lot of attention to every aspect of your partner's health, their alignment, their structure, where they're connected, where they're not connected, and build your partner up. That's your job as a feeder. And the personality of the feed is going to build inside them. So if it's sharp, they're going to reflect sharp Jinn. If it's soft, they're going to reflect soft Jinn. If it's loving, they're going to build loving Jinn. So if you want to put your partner on a cloud of bliss all the time to make them feel healthy and happy and have a sense of well-being and go home from training feeling like they just want to give their family a hug, that's the environment you can build by how you feed those energies to your partner. That's not going to happen in a martial school. That's going to happen in a health school where every member of your Tai Chi school is your family and your friends, and you take care of them. So you need to establish psychology of the environment that you train in and have it an agreed type of, even if it's an unspoken agreement between you and every person in the room, that this is the way we think and we train, we develop each other. And you put the priority of training every person in the room above yourself, and everyone's doing that for you as well. Everybody's supporting and evolving each other's growth through feeding the Jinns and the energies correctly. If I feed a punch to my partner, I have to feed it in such a way that his timing gets better, his speed gets better, his structure gets better. And if I hit him and hurt him, it has to be done in such a way that, hey, you really got to fix this weakness because I'm getting through. So it's done with love, even though it's pain. And it's because you want your partner to get stronger, better, and better structure and be an elite level martial artist, a master of the art. So, and you never fight with your partner competitively. You leave that for an open ring where other people from other schools can come and compete. You're there to build your training partners up. And if everyone's building each other up, when you compete with people from the outside of your school, you wipe the floor with them, because everything is perfected in your time, in your structure, and your strength in your school environment, in your family environment. So this this foresight needs to be put in before you feed the Jinn to your partner. What are you building inside them exactly? What is the bigger picture? You feed the Jinn there to get to the bigger picture. And within every exercise is a hologram of every other exercise. So they're all overlapping and influencing each other. So if you don't have the center of gravity of what your agenda is, what your goal is, you can't make all the exercises complement each other to reach your goal. So you have to really have a good think about why you're doing Tai Chi or Qigong or the martial art you're working on, and how you're going to reach your goal. Most schools don't have a goal. They just go there and they train. Their goal might be something simple. I want a black belt. I want to be an instructor. And they want to finish a system. But they don't truly understand the essential psychology, personality, structure of what that system is as a spiritual value in their life and how it's going to affect their personality. Really take all these things into consideration, break it down into the 3 dantians, the 3 bodies, and study it academically, intuitively, and think it out before you put 1,000 hours into doing it. Okay, thanks for your time, and see you on the next video.